And these estimates in Yas and Taukte cyclones are based on the industrial losses, insured losses, which means the actual cost could be much more higher, because I think the insurance, farmers want insurance, many small business people don't insure their businesses. So the report focus on the financial impact, usually more in richer countries because of higher property values and greater insurance coverage. But the real impact is more severe and intergenerational for poor countries that face food security and food insecurity, mass displacement and loss of life and property. The pandemic only made it more challenging for them. For instance, when Cyclone Yas hit in India, in West of Bengal, shelters could not be fully used because of their social distancing norms in 2021 because of COVID-19. So basically this COVID, these Yas and Taukte, these events, tropical cyclones were gold from the blue. Already the people were suffering because of the COVID-19, and these, Yas and Taukte, these two tropical cyclones visit India, hit India. So these extreme events highlight the need for concrete climate action, and especially finance and technology for the global south. You can see the potential climate change impacts. There could be health impacts because the waterborne diseases, other diseases, agriculture impact, the productivity would rise, the productivity of wheat can decrease in India, and we can have the food security challenges. Forest fires can increase, water resources, there will be impact on the water resources, water demand will increase because of the rise in temperature, and coastal areas will also will face a lot of tropical cyclones, more intense events, and there will be loss of flora and fauna on the earth. There were reported 1 million species risk extinction due to humans. This was a draft report published by the United Nations. So basically, we think we are the guardian of the Mother Earth. We think we are the custodian of the Mother Earth. But truly speaking, we are not. We are like one species, like other species, like species of elephant, species of ant, species of bird. We are one species. That is Homo sapiens. Now the agricultural impact, already we are seeing the Kullu Valley in Himachal Pradesh has experienced a number of crop failures in the last 30 years. And apple belt has moved 30 kilometers northward over the last 50 years in Kullu Valley. And apple growers say that poor production is due to the reduced snowfall and its changes in the Himalaya, particularly in the Himachal Pradesh and in Uttarakhand region and Kashmir region. Now, this energy is very important. This energy security, how the energy security and climate change can go hand in hand. What are the India's energy aspirations? It's very important, for the energy economics. Annual GDP growth rate for India is projected 8 to 9%. Net electricity generation in 2022 was 1850 billion units. And per capita electricity consumption in 2020 was 1200 kilowatt hour, and still we are well below the world average. This is 2800 kilowatt hour. World average is. So India, we are only 1200 kilowatt hour. And India has announced intent to reduce carbon emissions. Multiple objectives for Indian energy policies are: energy should be available to all, it should be reliable, it should be low cost, it should be low carbon energy, and there should be the energy security for all. And you see the electrical power, current capacity we are having a 3,90,000 megawatt, or you can say 390.8 gigawatt, and we are the 5th largest energy consumer in the world, but no per capita electricity consumption, and India is having only 1200 kilowatt hour. So we are energy starved, you can say, because what average is 2800 kilowatt hour per person. United States is 14,000 kilowatt hour per person. Can you imagine? We are having a peak shortage of electricity around 15%, and by 2040, we will require 8 lakh megawatt power. And every year we have to increase 25,000 megawatt of power. And there are climate concerns, there are energy security concerns for India. Now, what are the energy resources available for India to tackle the climate change? We have coal, capital cost for the 1 megawatt power plant comes around 4.4 to 5 crore per megawatt, and we have reserves of this 105 billion tons. This is a million tons, so 105 people convert into billion tons, and coal will last for 70 years. We have oil around 1200 million tons, which can last for further for 10 years. We have gas reserves for 20 years, we can last, otherwise we have to import. We have a hydro and we have nuclear. Now we have to shift towards the clean energy sources like wind energy. Wind energy, future energy. In India we have 7,000 kilometers of coastal area, and wind availability is there. So we can shift, we can go for the energy transition and we can shift towards the wind energy. Now wind power, India is leading in the wind power. I am one of the members of the Government of India Deep Ocean Mission. Where you can generate the wind from the not only onshore, you can offshore also. If you go to Madras, you go Chennai, or you go then you will find many wind power plants are in the sea where the depth of the water is less. So basically, this India is leading. India is leading with the, but we are having a lot of potential. Currently, we are generating more than 35,000 megawatt of electricity from wind. Now, solar energy, you see the solar energy industry, estimated potential of solar energy is more than 7 lakh megawatt. And Jawaharlal Nehru National Solar Mission launched 2010, targeted 20,000 megawatt, which is already achieved, and by 2022, and which has been revised to 1 lakh megawatt by the Government of India. And total installed capacity for the solar by November 30 was 48,000 megawatt. Off-grid capacity we have challenges for solar energy, intermittent generation of load management, high initial capital cost, and requirement of skilled manpower to run the solar plant. And you see the electricity generation from non-fossil fuel sources. India has achieved already the target of 40% of renewable energy, and we are leading in the world. And as per the Ministry of Non-Conventional Energy Sources, MNRE, installed renewable energy RE capacity stands 150 gigawatt. That means 1,50,000 megawatt. While the nuclear energy capacity is only around 6,000 megawatt, or you can say 6.78 gigawatt. So this brings the total non-fossil energy base installed energy capacity to 156.83 gigawatt. 1 gigawatt means 10 to the power 9 watt, or 1 gigawatt equals to 1000 megawatt. So this is around 40% of the total installed capacity of the 390.8 gigawatt, in the line with the Prime Minister announcement at the recently concluded Conference of Party 26 Climate Change Conference. And the government is committed to achieve 500 gigawatt of installed capacity from non-fossil fuel sources by 2030, is the Prime Minister's mission on energy. This is a paper which I published with my PhD student S.P.K. Das, who is the scientist in the Ministry of Non-Conventional Energy Sources. He is working on the renewable energy and particularly solar energy in the Government of India. Now, if you see the electricity generation, what is the cost of electricity? If you generate the power, if you generate the electricity by coal, it comes around 2 rupees 50 paise per unit. If you generate by natural gas, it comes around 3 rupees 90 paise. If you generate by diesel, it comes around 10 rupees 50 paise. If you generate the electricity by hydropower, by hydroelectric power, it comes around 3 rupees 80 paise. And if you generate by nuclear, very cheap, 2 rupees 50 paise, but there are many climate, and environmental challenges by nuclear power. And if you generate the electricity by first meter reactor, 5 rupees 70 paise, if you generate by wind, 2 rupees 80 paise per unit, cost comes, and it's very climate friendly also, because wind energy, we have a lot of wind energy potential, and this comes free of cost, no fossil fuel burning. And if you generate the energy by solar photovoltaics, it comes around 2 rupees 65 paise. So solar energy, wind energy are very competitive. If you compare with the coal, very competitive. So they can substitute it for the coal. But coal still remains for India. Coal remains still a major source of energy. But we know the coal is polluting. This can cause the climate change. So we have to basically we have to look for the technology like CCUS, carbon capture, and storage, which can make the coal energy as a green energy, source of green energy. Now the demand side management is required, because earlier there was a lot of pilferage in the energy, there were a lot of thefts in the energy, but that is already by smart meter, by smart grids, this is reduced. Transmission distribution losses are also decreased. I think you are aware, because we have lost, we have controlled the transmission distribution losses, we have controlled the pilferage, we have controlled the thefts. पहले काफी बिजली की चोरी होती, that also we have controlled. So demand side management is also very important. Now the meters, electronic meters, that cannot be tampered by the households. So through the consumption of energy is reflected by the meters. That is very important. And this is, I think in days biofuel energy will also become important, because we are having a total land area of 328 million hectares in India, and cultivated land is only 142 million hectares, and which can be converted into wasteland, can be converted to cultivable land is 30 million hectares. For rice we have around 40 million hectares, and we grow the wheat only 26 million hectares, and wasteland can be used for biofuel energy. But we cannot divert the agricultural land for the biofuel energy, because diverting land for the biofuel energy, agricultural land particularly, will also we have to compromise for the food security, which is not possible. So you can see the ethanol industry opportunities. Increase into sugarcane using drip irrigation and fertigation can increase. Now you see this sugarcane crop is very close to my heart, because in sugarcane you see it's such a beautiful crop, nothing is wasted. Even the spent cane is used on the paper making, gatta making, and molasses, which is basically a waste product of the sugarcane industry, is used for making ethanol, which can be blended. If you go to any petrol pump in Delhi, you will have the option. You want to purchase the blended petrol with ethanol, and ethanol is coming from the sugarcane. So how much the sugarcane industry can increase the income of the farmers? The Prime Minister also say we have to increase the income of the farmers, and at the same time we will tackle the climate change, because this energy is coming from the sugarcane industry, and this energy, that ethanol is sold 96 rupees per liter with petrol, and 96 rupees per liter. Basically, this is coming from the farmers, from the field. So nothing is wasted. Sugarcane juice is used in converting the sugar and sugar cube and waste like molasses in ethanol. Spent cane, bagasse is used paper making. So it's a 100% used energy. Like similarly for sweet sorghum, can be used for for the fuel, and cellulose ethanol from the agro forest residue can be converted into the ethanol. The farmers in Punjab are burning the barley, this straw, rice based particularly they are burning. This can be converted. This cellulose material can be converted into ethanol with some technology. So you can see here this basically this harvested of the agricultural waste and garden waste or forest waste can be the enzyme can break down this cellulose material into the sugar, and this sugar can be by microbes can be fermented into the ethanol, and ethanol can be used in the transportation sector. This is a paper basically I published with Professor YIT, this D.K. Sharma, and Sipra Gautam, my PhD student. Now she works in Reliance Energy. This basically this was published in biomass and biorefinery papers long back. Now, if you see what 1 hectare can do, if you use the sugar cane, per hectare can harvest 80 tons per hectare, and sugar cane juice can be converted into ethanol, and ethanol per hectare can be produced around 6,000 liters per hectare. Similarly, for corn ethanol, this maize can be converted into the ethanol, and you can produce 2,800 liters per hectare from this corn ethanol. So these fuels are all green fuels, can basically tackle the climate change and can be used. Now jatropha also 1 to 1.5 tons per hectare, and sweet sorghum can also use, millet can be used to generate fuel, energy fuel, like 2,500 to 3,500 per liter per hectare can be produced. So now you see the potential R&D, research and development domains for climate mitigation may be new and affordable materials for photovoltaic, green coal technology like carbon capture, utilization and store can tackle the climate, low speed wind power because we have a lot of wind resources in coast area. Wind speed is very high in the coast area, Kerala coast, Chennai coast, Pondicherry coast, in Odisha, in Bengal. So you can harness this power. Cellulosic ethanol, you can produce the cellulosic ethanol from the agro waste. Farmers will not burn it. It can be converted to the well. Efficient and affordable hybrid electric vehicles. EV is already introduced in the market. EV vehicles are coming to tackle the climate. Energy storage, efficient batteries and condensers. Demand side management by controlling fill phase, transmission and distribution losses of energy. And trained human resources required that we can mitigate the climate. See, but there are some social questions. You see this slide. A rich person is basically, the government is converting this corn, maize into ethanol fuel, which you are using with 20-30% blend in your car. But this corn is not available in hungry world. People are hungry. So can we convert the food resources like wheat or barley or maize or corn to make the biofuels when many people are hungry in the world? So now this saying, I am sorry, no, I am busy saving the planet, but he is saving the planet on the other, there is a lot of poverty. So there is social justice, social questions comes when you convert the food items or converting in the food for rich people. If you see the energy economics, fossil energy ratio, energy delivered to customer, fossil energy used. If you use this cellulosic material, agriculture based, of course the technology, invention of technology, refining of technology required. If you spend one unit of energy, it generates 10.3 unit of energy. If you use the corn ethanol by base, you spend 1 unit of energy, you get 1.36 unit of energy. You use gasoline, you use 1 unit of energy and power is generated only 0.81 unit. And electricity, if you burn coal, you take the coal from the mines, you burn it. Suppose coal is having 100 calorie energy, coal, but you burn it and generate steam and you convert it to electricity. Only 45 units are, only out of 100 calories, only 45 calories are converted into the electricity. So this is the least efficient source of energy. Now integration of housing, services, schools and education reduces emissions and promotes active travel. As in European countries already doing, I will discuss Colonel Sir, this how this integration of housing, services, schools and recreation activities can reduce the emissions of greenhouse gases and can promote the active travel. So land use planning is one of the most effective measures to promote physical activity and climate mitigation strategies. That is, schools within the walking distance